just somebody longing for someone to hold me. It could be anybody, but you chose me somehow. Now I'm crazy thinking about you.
Hey, what's going on? It's Vince down at Tampa on this Labor Day weekend. I had to do a restart because normally my boy Mike G's here that would do the start. So, hey, I kind of messed it up this morning. So we were having to do a little restart. I got Charles on today. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about prepping for bodybuilding. We're also going to talk about preparation, but also we're going to touch on a little bit of men's mental health. And let me go on a little further. I want to say that November will be Men's Mental Health Month, so we need to make sure we're always aware of that. And with that being said, Charles, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. So where are you located right now?
So I'm in Connersville, Indiana.
Where's that near? Is it near Gary? Is it near Indianapolis?
Yeah, so we're almost exactly in between Indianapolis and Richmond, Indiana.
Okay, so what's the weather like right now today?
Actually, we cooled off quite a bit, man. We're kind of chilling about 75 this last week or two. It's been really nice.
Oh yeah, you know, the Midwest mosquitoes, man. I call them those local birds, man. They're worse than the ones in Louisiana. You know, so we met down at the Tampa Pro, and this guy, I'm gonna tell you, guy, he is a wealth of knowledge. He's spiritual. This guy is on point on all accords. So what are your credentials to, you getting into bodybuilding, and what was the thing that kind of manifest you into your coaching realm that you sit now?
Yeah, man. So it all kind of started when I was younger. I always loved playing sports. Always played them, loved them, and there was a year where there was some issues in town. My parents pulled me out, and I gained a little weight from it. Right, I wasn't being nearly as active. So I remember my buddy's 13th birthday party. It was a pool party. I was so embarrassed. I wouldn't take my shirt off. Because I wouldn't take my shirt off, I wasn't allowed in the pool. Wrecked me. So then, did what I always heard: eat less, run more. So started running about 3-4 miles a day.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I started getting like super skinny, hit my growth spurt right then. So then I got picked on for being super skinny. So couldn't win, man. So when I was in high school, my parents had split. It wasn't exactly amicable at first, and I kind of got caught in the middle of it, like a lot of young men do. Reached out for any sense of family, got in with people I shouldn't have been in with. Honestly, looking back, I was on a road for a 6x6 or 6 foot under, and a gentleman named Mike grabbed me one day. I was like, "Dude, we're going to the gym." I was like, "Man, I hate going to the gym. I had to live for sports. I hate it. I try to get out of it." I'm like, "I'm not doing that." He's like, No, we're doing it." I was like, "Man, all right, whatever." He's like, "Well, what are we going to hit?" I said, "Man, if it's up to me, we're going to hit chest." Like, all right.
The guy, he's always the chest, arms and chest.
Yes, sir. So we get there and we're lifting, and I'll never forget it. He gets to like 315. I'm like, "All right, Mike, that's okay." And he goes, "Let's put another plate on." And in my head, I'm like, "Dude, you are not hitting. Like, stop it. You are not." And he popped off this long sleeve shirt into like one of those old school tank tops and was just built. And I was like, "Oh!" And he just hit it for like 5 or 6 reps, and I'm mind blown. So I'm like, "All right, dude, if he can do that, I'm gonna start chasing it." And man, it was never really intentional, but after about 6, 7, 8 months of doing it, I was less angry. I was less upset. I was thinking clearer, and it taught me a really good lesson in delayed gratification. And through that change, I realized how much my life had changed just from lifting weights, and it allowed me to meet my wife, some of my best friends, Adam, and so on and so forth that you've met. I opened my first business at 22, and thank you. And then down the road, here I am. So. For me, it was I know how much this changed my life and my complete direction. So I want to be able to do this for other people.
All right. So And as you look at your warrior ethos, is what's internally that drives you to help other people and give back to your community. What kind of communication style do you use when you're working with different clients? Because everybody's kind of different people. And here's the thing: when I mean by the term communication style, is everybody that comes into you to work out with you or get guidance from you. They all come from different walks of life with different problems. And so how do you kind of navigate that world? Because we live in a very complex world right now, Charles. This ain't the 80s, this ain't the late early 90s. This is complex. That's the only reason I bring it up, because to me, it seems today communication is a lost art.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So when it comes to people, like you said, we all have our own stories. And when it comes to that type of thing, I think the biggest approach I've learned is to listen, and not just hear to respond, but truly listen and understand that what's being said is not always that's all that's being said.
That's true.
Yeah. So sometimes when people say certain things and they have responses, it's diving deeper to what has put this mindset into this person. Was it something that happened to them? Was it maybe life hit them hard and they had to jump right into survival mode? And then understanding, there's a model out there called the DISC model, understanding that we have 4 basic types of communication with people and understanding how people like to be communicated to.
Yeah. And the thing is when you're dealing with, especially with athletes, I'm finding out that even when I coach football or anything, that their variances are high and low when I'm dealing with it, depending on how they accept the feedback. Because one big thing about coaching and mentoring is you have to apply feedback. And now, are you a good feedback provider, man? Well, I'll ask your wife. I need to ask your wife for that.
Yeah, she may have a different response. So, yeah, when it comes to feedback, man, yeah, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? There's a conversation within the conversation.
Let's talk about this real quick. Program design. So, I met you and we were talking, and, it was my first time being in a competition, and I met some of the colleagues that were working with you and some of your students that were there. And I call them students because you were being a sensei, you were leading them to the next level. When you talk about program design, what does that entail? How do you tailor that program to the individual client, and how do they adapt to it? And if it's not working, how do you adjust it?
Yeah. So when it comes to, specifically prepping for a bodybuilding show or any real weight loss and competition journey period, it's all about data, right? What information can I get from the client beforehand? And based off what I know beforehand, I can write out a plan, right? So if I am thinking Mrs. Smith wants to do a show, okay, Mrs. Smith currently weighs this much. She's currently this body fat percentage. So statistically speaking, we're going to lose between 0.5% to 1% a week if we're really, really pushing. So we at least need this much time, right? And then I want to give myself some grace period. I want to have a couple weeks designed in there for when things do stick, things don't go ideal, maybe life hits her and we have a bad week. And that gives us the opportunity to have those things occur and still be able to stay on point. So real coaching begins when plan A fails, though. So when plan A fails, that's when it's okay. Like, we've tried this and this, it didn't work. So we've got to reapproach this. And having designed de-stress weeks is huge. I make sure all my clients have de-stress weeks where we pull food back up, we lower activity, we let their body just chill, get rid of some inflammation. I'm a big believer in when I can give you tasty food, I do. So a lot of my athletes use Rice Krispie treats for pre-workout. Hungry, that's a great treat, man. Like,
I grew up on them back in the day, right? A lot of butter in them. I love those doggone things, man. Marshmallow and butter it up, baby.
Yes,
so,
sir.
I was saying, great segue, because you went to a great segue, because accountability. So you shifted, you were talking about the Rice Krispie treat, and how do you help your clients stay motivated, disciplined, and accountable to their goals?
Yeah. So anytime we have a successful transformation, there's 3 pillars of success when it comes to what we do, right? Exercise being an obvious one, nutrition being an obvious one, but accountability is the biggest one. So as human beings, we like to ride emotional roller coasters, right? And we're very influential. So when you're around people who are doing something, we like to do it too. So for a lot of my clients, we have group chats we're in together. I personally reach out to them. I like sending voice memos and even FaceTime calls and things like that. Keep it a lot more personable. And then when they're having those moments, those crashes, talking them through them, an actual phone call, face-to-face conversation, not a text message. And reminding them why they're doing it. Set the expectation early. Like, hey guys, there's going to be some weeks where you really just don't want to do this anymore. And that's okay. We all go through it. Like, yeah.
I know personally.
Yeah. I call it the prep blues, man. We get into that phase where we're hungry, we're emotional, we're tired, we're sore. We don't feel like we look good yet. We're kind of flat. So I call that the prep blues phase. So I prepare everybody to know, hey, this is going to happen and that's okay. And then just honestly, man, it's a really hard conversation at the beginning of prep of, hey, is this something you actually want to do? And just making sure and finding that reason why. Whenever a transformation for a human happens, there's 2 big things. We have our moment, which is something that happens to us, a situation or an instance where that we have that big emotional investment. Sometimes it's often to do with kids, wife, maybe something personal. You looked in the mirror and didn't like it. You struggled going upstairs. A doctor talked to you. We have our moment, but then we also have our why. Why are we doing this? Why do I want to lose weight? Well, that's what we're doing. That's not why we're doing it. Why do you want to lose weight? Oh, well, honestly, man, I couldn't carry my kids upstairs anymore, and that hurt. Okay, man, like that's our why. Now we have a reason, and since we have a reason, we'll have a way. Oh,
wow. I love how you frame that, because the challenges of the blues, right? And then the prep and why you're doing it. But, as you engage in all that from a holistic standpoint, and you touched on it when you were talking about the different challenges and issues that people have, and then the mental well-being that everybody has to go through. Even yourself, you're going to be going through things as a coach while you're trying to help other people. How do you balance that? Because you got to smile all the time. Everybody else has got to grind, but even though you jump in them, like they say, you gotta be what I call it, kindness with hardness.
Yeah.
To get people through it. So how do you manage it yourself?
Yeah, man. So I like to say they've done studies, and I'm a big believer in science proves the Bible, and the Bible tells us repeatedly to keep some gratefulness, right? Yes. Remember what we have. And they've done studies, and when you're grateful, it's the most powerful emotion to fight feeling any other type of way, right? So a lot of people say stay positive, focus on the positive. Well, with positive, you always acknowledge the negative, right? You're like, man, my car broke down, but the positive side is I do have another car to drive. And it's like, okay, well, you acknowledged it. But if you're grateful, you eliminate that first part of the sentence. You're just like, man, I'm so grateful that I'm blessed to have a second vehicle to drive. Like, thank you, I'm taken care of, right? We don't even acknowledge the negative. And that's the big thing. Your body or your mind naturally gravitates to whatever is said. So if I say, don't think about an elephant, right? You just thought about an elephant, even though I said not to. So it's the same thing with negatives. They're like, don't think about the negative. It's like, well, I just did. But if I just say, hey, what are you grateful for? You don't even think negative. You just think about all your blessings. And man, I've been so blessed in my life. And sometimes I lose sight of that. And I always try to sit down and refocus on that, because I've been given so much more than I deserve.
I'm right there with you, and I say it all the time. And I think for me, it's easier than for most people, like my wife or my kids or anybody, because I've been, been the combat, been deployed. And so for me, I've seen the worst of mankind and the best of mankind. And so for me, I'm grateful every day because I realize, after being in a bad situation, how short a time we have on this earth and how short life can be. So every day to me is a blessing if I wake up vertically. So the one thing I love to really touch on is nutrition. Do you provide meals, plan meals, or how do you help people? Because that was my struggle this last competition, since I never ever done bodybuilding before. And 100 grams, I'm like, bro, what's 100 grams? I think, hey, me and you need to collaborate, Charles, and we need to invent the 100-gram plate.
That'd be helpful. A lot of people need it, right? Container for 100 grams.
100-gram plate, man, and can't stack it. It's got to be 100 grams, because I think that is the biggest struggle, is the proportions of knowing them. And I'm like, look, we spend our whole system in inches and miles, and then you go, what, we're going to go to the metric system now? No, I'm just joking. But so how do you help people with their nutrition? Because that's the biggest part of any kind of bodybuilding, be it physique, be it any of it. It's always the freaking food, man.
Yeah. And my approach with a lot of it when it comes to nutrition, because, I work with a lot of health and wellness clients as well. So I'm as strict on nutrition as we need to be. If I don't have to be, I don't want to be. So for most general health and wellness people, I preach more about habits and changing an identity, right? I'm someone who doesn't drink pop because that's just who I am, right?
Thank you.
We try to work towards that pop. Yeah, we try to work towards that, right? When it comes to show prep, unfortunately, we're trying to get to an extreme. So we do have to be really on point with our food. So my job as a coach, and I do write nutrition plans for all my clients, my job is to not only obviously give you what you need to get you where you need to be, but it's also my job to make sure you can stick to that, right? I can write you the most perfect plan possible. Right. But if it's so hard to adhere to that you're falling off, then it's obviously not a perfect plan. So that's like I mentioned briefly earlier, right? The Rice Krispie treats, right? I've got people all the time backstage. I get it all the time. And they'll look up to my clients and like, yeah, dude, I haven't had carbs in this long. Like, dude, I was still eating Rice Krispie treats and stuff. Like I'm good. But then on the post show, right, they don't crash out and go have like 10 cakes and an apple pie and candy bars and ice cream because they're not really craving sugar as much because they've had it all prep long too. So, but it's understanding it, as a coach, it's my job to understand it and it's my job to implement it. It's just their job to execute it. So I want to give those micronutrients to where we feel good, keeping fruits and stuff in as long as I can. I'm a big believer in carb cycling. I love it. I do it with all my clients. We have what's called a refeed day. So the idea is for the week, it's more of a weekly or 4 or 5 day span to make sure that we're in a deficit for that time period. We go a little harder 2 or 3 days, and then we have 1 day where we overeat. And it helps reset leptin levels. It helps respike different metabolism, keeps body functions happening really well, right? Being in a deficit for too long, we can have hormone crashes. So, it's my job as a coach to be educated and know these things. And it's my job, and I won't call coaches out directly, but I see coaches who try to work with people in nutrition that have no actual idea and concept of how this works. Yeah. They just understand that, hey, eat less, move more. And it's like, well, yeah. Oh, apples are healthy and cupcakes aren't. Well, yeah. Everybody knows that stuff.
Yeah, but that was one of the problems I ran into was my diet. I realized that my coach wanted me to be at 160. I love him to death, but I'm 60 years old, so I'm not going to get to 160 as hard as I was trying. But we also lost 50 pounds in 7 months, right? And so I was telling, and I was like, look, man, let's take the small wins. Let's take the small wins right now. And so, I still had, and I had a little bit excess visceral fat after I lost all that weight, but I didn't care because I think my take on it all was I'm doing something I had never done. I am pushing myself to something that I've never. And the mental part of doing any kind of bodybuilding, man, that's next level, man. This is next level stuff. You got to be mentally tough to do this, like Ranger School or something, man.
That's the golden nuggets, man.
Yeah. But you guys, there's something you hit on is that research. It seems like you've done your homework and understanding where the body functions, because I think that's where me and my coach we had a little bit disconnect. Love you. We had a little disconnect because I kept plateauing. right? Because I was not eating carbs and I was going like, I mean, hella periods without eating carbs. And I started plateauing at a point. And there was one point for about 2 months, I got stuck at like 188. And I mean, I was working out, dieting, doing everything, doing the cardio, but I couldn't get out of 188 till like almost 3 weeks into the 3 weeks before the competition. I'd say about 5 weeks before competition, I finally ate a carb and I was like, I couldn't do it no more. I ate a carb. And then all of a sudden, boom, I got down to 179. And it was crazy. I don't know why it happens that way. So can you kind of touch on that why that happens to people? They plateau like this?
Yeah. And, the body is the ultimate adapter, right? Building muscle, losing weight, gaining weight, posture, all that stuff is your body adapting. So when it comes to being in a deficit, strictly staying in a deficit for a super long time, your body adapts. It's called down regulation. Hormones can come down, body function comes down. All this stuff starts to decline, cognitive function. And that's where in check-ins, it's so important to have, more than just pictures and weight. Like, how are you feeling? How are your pumps? How is your brain function? Were you sleeping well? Because that's a big thing I see a lot too. People start dropping food real hard and people's sleep just stinks at that point, right? So your body does that. So then when you introduce some food back to it, it allows your body, to get back into some of those functions it wants to. Your body starts to think like, hey, I'm getting food again. I don't got to store it. I ain't got to worry about losing too much because I'm starting to get it again. So then it relaxes and you lose a lot of inflammation that way too.
Oh,
so yeah. And that's where I tell people all the time. Like I said, my clients do refeeds clear up to almost 2 weeks out, 1 week out from a show. We don't have some magic peak week where we're carbless and we're doing this and doing that. When you're ready, you're ready. There's no magic to peak week. Peak week is just adding some glycogen back in. And that's only if we're a little off. And that's because, we have to refill because we had to push clear up to the show to lose weight. Ideally, I want you ready a week, 2 weeks out to where we can add food back in, take some stress and inflammation out of the body and just cruise into the show.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, that's why I have so much respect for, after I sat there and the person that was putting on the show, the Tampa Pro, his name, I guess, Tim Gardner's staff. And when he said that, bodybuilders like in the 1%, and that's why I have so much respect for the guys that are in Rangers, Special Forces, Delta, because they take themselves to like a nine week calorie deficit for what those guys do. And then they come on the other side and survive. And I told somebody, I said, now I know what Rangers and Special Forces guys go through. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, because the calorie deficit for 9 weeks, and you're doing it longer than 9 weeks as a person doing bodybuilding, you're bouncing between that fracture line. And then, so the one thing you brought up was check-ins. How do you handle your check-ins? Because you probably got clients all over the place.
Yeah. I do a lot of online coaching. So check-ins for me are in 3 basic categories. So first and foremost, I want pictures. I want to see your physique. That's going to show me, like, if we are holding inflammation, like what happened, what changes happened, right? I do want to see your weight. That's simply a tool that tells me how much of something happened, right? Did we lose this much inflammation? Did we gain this much? Whatever it may be. And then I want some sort of, I have a questionnaire I send out a lot of times, especially when people are first getting started. And it's, how are your pumps? How is your sleeping? How is your digestion this week? Were you noticing bloating? How does your appetite feel? Are you noticing any health changes between blood pressure, blood sugars, and et cetera? And getting all that information so I know what's happening in your body, right? If I'm not in front of you and I don't get to talk to you and see you every day, that's information that I feel like gets lost a lot. And it's very important, right? Our nutrition dictates our health and our body function and how we feel and all these different things. So not always will side effects and changes be physically shown, So when we are sticking like you did and you're telling me, hey, I'm doing everything I am, it's just not changing. Maybe some of those other questions, like, how are your pumps in the gym? How was this? How was that? Okay, well, we're going to take this approach to drive this up. And then that function is going to allow us to then start dropping more weight.
Okay. So how often do you use out what I call the outer band of sports training, like how much stretching, sauna, cold plunge, or a cryo chamber. How much of that stuff do you kind of work in within the program that you're working with people?
Yeah, so I always give a stretching and a foam rolling protocol to all my athletes and clients. I have like literally days where that's all that you're supposed to do is just stretch, relax. And then it kind of depends on the person. If I notice like some bad posture things that I want to address, I'm like, hey man, we're very pronated in our shoulders. I'd like to get them retracted back. Then that person's going to have way more of an aggressive stretching and mobility plan than someone who does have good posture and stays pretty flexible. So it kind of depends on the person, but I at least always have 2 or 3 days dedicated where we strictly will be doing that, and they have to check that off in my app. And then, like I said, if it's required more, I definitely push it way more. But it's kind of on an individual basis.
All right. So you said the word your app. So you have an app? I
do have an app.
All right. So what is it? Can you put it out there? Is it out for public knowledge?
Yeah. So it's called BAM Fitness app. So I use it here for my gym members. I also use it for all my training clients remotely. That's where all of our communication happens. Your meal prep's in it. Workouts are in there. The workouts have demonstrational videos on how to do them all. You track your sets, your reps, your weight, and all those different things. Plus any daily habits I went in there. I put those in there, and you have to physically go in and check off that you did those. And then each week or each couple of days, whatever it may be, I'm able to look and see how much you were accomplishing, what we were struggling on. So if I have a point of emphasis, I can. But it's called BAM Fitness, but you actually can't get into it without an invitation, unfortunately. So we'll see.
It's on Instagram, right?
Yeah, you can reach me out on Instagram and Facebook, and we can get you set up for sure. So,
and see, hey guys, top secret, man. That's SCSI stuff right there. That's next level. All right. So, hey, and Charles, there's a couple questions before we get out of here, man. So if you look at, and I'm older than you, so, I'm like old as dirt. So, the question is, as you see the struggle that youth have today with obesity and in the African-American community, I can speak on it. Females are at 70% overweight. Majority of Hispanics in certain areas of the United States are majority overweight. And it's not, and I'm going to be very clear, it's not race driven, and it's health driven on what you eat. Portion sizes of plates. What's your take now as you step back and kind of look from a holistic standpoint of fitness? Why are we so big, and why? And if we know we're so big and we got 10-year-old kids on with diabetes 2 or diabetes 1 on all kind of medicines, and if we know this and we've known this for 30 years, why do you think we're still having a struggle with food, man?
Yeah. So when you take a step back and look at the processes of our food and how nowadays we have so many food-like products, because a lot of stuff I won't even consider food anymore, right?
Right.
When you look at like bread, right, when it says enriched, that just simply means it's sprayed with folic acid, and our body doesn't even use folic acid.
Folic acid.
And yeah, the United States itself, when you look at a lot of our food products and you take it to even European standards, most of the foods we have are not allowed to be sold in Europe. And it's kind of crazy to me that it's never addressed. But, I'm not going to be one of those people who says it's all money, it's big pharma, it's this and that. If it is, it may be, it may not be. That's not what's important to me.
We still have choices to eat it, though.
Exactly. What's important to me is setting that standard. And somewhere along the line, YOLO became that big phrase, right? You only live once. And as a kid, when I was growing up, mom and dad was like, you get one pop a week. You get ice cream after your meal. That's it. You don't get all those treats all the time. And then all of a sudden we become adults and it's our own money. And you're like, dude, if I want to pop, I'm going to drink a pop. YOLO. Only live once.
Drink 10 of them.
Right. And then all of a sudden it just catches up to us. And a lot of those chemicals and different dyes and different things that are in our food product, it downregulates our hormones. Male testosterone is down an average of like 400 or 500 points.
Yep. Grip strength.
Insane. Yep.
So why do you think so many influencers? Because you're really an influencer, and a lot of times you don't realize the power you have by the amount of people you touch every day. Why do you think we're having this pendulum swing right now with influencers getting back into the warrior ethos? Getting back to being in shape, getting back to be a man, be centered. Find religion again. It's like there's been like a massive pendulum swing, and this happened before you were born. It happened in the 70s. So I'll give a real quick history, and I'll let you respond. In 1920s, the YMCA and everything was invented for a reason, because in the 30s, because in the 20s, the United States historically thought that in the Roaring 20s, they thought men were becoming soft or feminine. So they shifted to the cause of inventing football, baseball, all wrestling, boxing. So all these men's sports were invented in the 30s, 40s, right? So the transition, but theoretically it was a good reason, a good thing, because what happened is World War II came around, and when the 30s shift, they were ready to go to World War II. So that kind of worked out, even though nobody's foresaw all that madness coming. And so now, during the 60s, John F. Kennedy had a big push about men needed to be, young boys need to be working out, stay in shape, fitness. He had a big push during the school times in the 60s. So now, since we've been through the late 90s, early 2000s, we've had this massive pendulum swing. And so as a person of yourself being an influencer and everything, why do you think now we have multiple influencers now on social media talking about dad bods aren't cool and that we need to get back in shape? What do you think what's happening in society has caused all these men to come out now and preach the gospel and preach that men need to be more fitter?
Yeah. And I think they tie in together. I think, when you look at the Bible and you look what a man was designed to be and how we complement each other and different things like that, we are meant to be in a specific state. And like I said, for myself, when I went from eating, we'll say normal people food, so to speak, for lack of a better expression, to, specifically whole foods and way stricter of a diet, my body function got better, which made my brain function better. And all of a sudden it all started rolling together, right? Because my body was producing certain chemicals and enzymes, different things like that. My brain function got better. My mental health got better. And with that transformation that happened within me, it's like, hey guys, like if you only knew. And, it's the exact same expression I tell people all the time. And they're like, man, why do you always talk about Christ? Why do you bring this up? I'm like, man, if you just only knew. And that's it. When you have that conviction and that belief and that personal change in you, you want to tell everybody else, because you're like, guys, if you only knew how much life could be, how much better this could be.
Well, I can tell you this. It's funny. This is going to sound morbid, but one night the bombs were falling in, we're getting attacked. And it's funny how everybody finds religion really fast when they were atheists. And I used to say, boy, why are you over there praying now, man? You weren't thinking about that before we got here. So what I think is you don't have to have a dramatic experience or a dramatic thing happen to you to find Christ. But I do believe in that and agree with you that there is a tie-in between Christ and manhood, because as I tell my daughters all the time, man, and I said to my wife, I said, look, my job is not to pay bill. I mean, my job is to protect and provide. And I'm not supposed to be like, I'm dad. That's mommy's job. And I tell my daughters this all the time, and they get mad. They're like, Dad, what's wrong with you? No, I said, because at the end of the day, my life is simple as a man. I get up, work, do what I got to do to take care of the family and make things happen. I said, and that's what the Bible says. We protect the areas that we live to sustain the tribe. And then we provide the nourishment and the things so that the tribe survives. I mean, it can't be no more simpler than that. And, and then just make sure we keep the tribe growing down the road. So I like how you frame things in life and how you see it, because young men need to hear the message. So do you go out and speak at high schools, or do you do seminars or anything that, get your word out there? It's easy to do it at church. So I'm trying to see out in the community, have you been thrust in the community to send a message, man?
So, yeah, man. So actually, kind of ironically enough that you asked, this very morning, right before we got done at 9 a.m. today, we hosted a weights and worship. we just had some praise music going. We put on a free workout for anybody in the community to come in, do it. We opened and closed in a word of prayer and kind of invited anybody with questions to come talk to us. We have a Bible study I host here at the gym every Thursday at 7 p.m. I also work in the high school. I volunteered to go run the weights class for them and write some programming for the strength and conditioning. It grew into a larger position than when it started. So now I kind of full time run the advanced weightlifting classes for the school. So I get a chance to see a lot of these young men and hear these stories. And, sometimes it really breaks your heart what somebody that age has to go through. And I really hope they understand that, we weren't meant to live like this. Like that wasn't meant to be a thing. And
right.
It's very unfortunate. But
hey, look, coaching football, high school football, you think you know a story until you really know a story, And I look at the amount of kids I've moved into the Army that were in foster care, stepdad issues, or step parent issues and stuff, and I see them thriving. Now, so me not being a bodybuilder, just getting into it. I'm gonna do it one more time because you kind of motivated me a lot when I was there. One of the kids sent me a video. He went in the Army last year and he became a Army engineer sapper. And he looks like a bodybuilder. He went from the skinny kid to just jacked, right? So he sent me the video and says, "Hey, coach, I'm trying to be like you." But the thing is the people's lives that we touch, and the young man that I met there that you posted a picture, you and him, I was really impressed with him. And that the fact that you were there mentoring him and guiding him, man, it says a lot about who you are as a human being. So I just want to say thank you on that. So Charles, it's been great having you on. If you could give any advice when I get ready, this airs, for any young person watching this, what advice would you give them about? You said you had a business at 22, so that's motivation and discipline all rolled into one. So what advice would you have for someone?
I would just tell them that, as cliche as it sounds, like the only limits you have are the ones you put on yourself. And just because someone else hasn't done it doesn't mean you can't. It's just a matter of finding a way, and hard work will always win.
Amen. And so you got some homework, because I told you when we were at Tampa, you got to go watch Four Feathers, man. You got to watch the 1930 version. And then you got to watch the current version that was out with Lee Hedger about 20 years ago. That's your homework from me. The greatest term is God put you in my way. All right. So I appreciate you coming on. And as I always say, when my boy Mike G's not here today, but I'm going to tell Charles, you know what? You always got to keep it rolling, my man. And thank you.
See you guys.